Hi, this is Mike San Clemente. Welcome to Stratogists.com's first 2011 webcast. It's been a while since I posted a webcast. I think it's been over a year, in fact, and such is life with a 2-year-old in the house. Things have been pretty busy, but I want to get back on the saddle here and talk to you today about two things, but one primarily, information. What is information? Well, information is kind of free these days, right? When you're trying to do research on your player, it could be a veteran, it could be a rookie. But if you're trying to figure out who's good and what they're doing and get your scouting report going so you can make a trade and assess your team, back in the day, you used to be able to just, or you'd have to, buy a magazine, buy the Sporting News, buy Sports Illustrated or whatever other publications you wanted to. But today, with an internet connection and a computer, all this information is kind of free. You can go to CBS Sportsline, you can go to Yahoo, you can go to ESPN or whatever other websites you want to. But just because there's a lot of websites out there, and just because there's a lot of even magazines out there and other sources of information, doesn't mean they're all good. The same information is available to everyone, but as you're assessing your team, you have to find a way to distinguish what is good information and what is not. I'm going to give you a few examples from ESPN and Rick Sutcliffe and a few other things I've got written down here on ways to figure out when what you're hearing or what you're reading is kind of full of crap. You need to pull that stuff out, because as you're assessing your team, you have to realize that there are so many sources of information out there that really can't help you make a better trade. I'm actually going to get to the second thing right now, and that is I hope you would go to our website, Stratogists.com, to purchase our rookie review from this year. And the reason I asked for that a little more special this year is all of our profits this year are going to charity. We have two charities that we're supporting. One is on autism. A friend of mine has a child who's mildly autistic, and it is a disease that is very difficult to understand. It's affecting more and more and more kids, and it's a very worthy cause to put your funds towards that. The second cause is actually, can you even read this? My camera's set to this setting where it follows my face wherever it goes. You can't read my shirt. My shirt talks about the pedigree adoption drive for dogs. Every year, 4 million dogs are put up for adoption. 2 million are adopted. You can figure out what happens to the other 2 million. It's 2 million dogs every year that are euthanized. And by buying the Rookie Review this year, you will help support autism and help support homeless dogs. So I thank you in advance for that. Getting to the topic at hand, a year ago, ESPN, the magazine, had this article. They had this little blurb, baseball blurb, and it talked about Wandy Rodriguez. And basically what it mentioned was, it said that Wandy Rodriguez was having a breakout year, and that was 2009. And it talked about how Pudge Rodriguez was saying, well, he's working faster, and he's doing all these other things, and this is contributing to his breakout year. Let me tell you something. If you ever read something on Strategist.com that says that Wandy Rodriguez had a breakout year in 2009, send me an email and tell me that I'm full of crap and tell me that my site is worthless. I asked you to do that. Wandy Rodriguez did not have a breakout year in 2009. In fact, he didn't have one in 2008 either. I'm pretty sure it was 2007. These guys, I don't know how they're so far behind. It was just one sentence in the whole magazine. I don't want to go nuts on them, but again, when you read things like this, you have to understand that a lot of the stuff that you read, if it's not specifically geared towards Strat, it's not really going to help you. I was watching a game on ESPN last year, and I don't watch a ton of ESPN baseball. I watch just enough, and Rick Sutcliffe, I think, is really funny, especially the way he talks. Like, he doesn't ever drop his voice at the end of a sentence. No, this is Rick Sutcliffe, and one of the things that really surprised me, is what he said, is that the San Francisco Giants, they went out. They picked up Ryan Garco. They picked up Jose Castillo to fill in some holes at first base and second base. They went out. They picked up these guys, these big hitters, these big guns. And what's surprising to me is that the team hasn't done any better. They haven't closed the gap in the standings. Their offense hasn't done any better with Ryan Garco, with Jose Castillo. It's really quite surprising to me. And I'm going to stop with the Sutcliffe shtick. He's kind of amusing to talk to, but can get a little annoying after a while. But let me tell you something else again. If you find something on Strategist.com that tells you that adding Ryan Garco to your team is actually going to improve your offense, you're crazy. you add Jose Castillo to your team at second base, and you're expecting your offense to improve. That's a little crazy as well. Again, here's a guy, he should know the game. He's a pitcher, but he makes a classic announcer statement. Team X picks up player Y. Doesn't matter if player Y is good or not. Just the fact that they picked him up, you expect the team to improve. Well, don't they realize they have to drop somebody to pick this guy up? Is he any better than the guy that they've dropped? Probably not. So there's a lot of issues there when you're listening to announcers. There's plenty of room there for people who just really don't know what they're talking about. Last summer, Scott Hairston was traded from the Padres to the A's in the middle of the season. And I've owned Scott Hairston since he was a little baby, since he was a second baseman with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I've always wondered what would happen if he played a full season in center field. He always plays just enough left field and gets hurt just enough to manage a 4 in center and nothing more. Sometimes he'll get a 3 in left. And I was like, one of these years, he's going to get a 3 in center. And the second that he does, I'm going to flip him. I'm going to trade him somewhere else. So I was eager to hear a lot about the trade, especially where he would play defensively. So I logged on to MLB.com, which I normally don't do because I just feel like a site that is by and for and of the MLB is not going to give an objective viewpoint on a lot of the things that go on. I mean, they could talk about how great this player is doing and that player, but it's not going to do too much more than that. So it said, Bob Smith is here to break down, click here for a video and Bob Smith will break down the Scott Hairston trade. This is the sorriest excuse of a breakdown of a trade I've ever seen. And it's typically, guys, I'm not negative. I'm really not. There's a lot of media outlets out there, a lot of sources of information that are pretty good, but there's a lot of them that are very prevalent and very commonplace, that are in your face. They're easy to access. We're all reading them. Yahoo.com, ESPN.com, ESPN the magazine, MLB.com. But there's so much stuff out there that is just worthless. There's so much that's worthless. I really hope that we all make an effort to understand what is worthwhile and what isn't. Their breakdown of the Scott Hairston trade had video highlights of him playing, and it talked about who was involved in the trade. It listed those players. It read their names. It said whether they were major league players or minor league players. I believe it was just Hairston for 2 minor league pitchers. They read off Hairston's lifetime statistics. He had a lifetime 100 homers, or he had a lifetime 250 RBIs. In 1,300 career at bats, he has, I don't know what the math works out, 313 hits. Are you helping me break down the trade? No, you're not. You don't even say, they didn't even say what level of minor league play the pitchers were at. They didn't say whether they thought the pitchers would contribute later this year and be called up to the Padres, who were in a rebuilding year last year. They said nothing about where they thought Scott Hairston might bat in the Oakland order. They said nothing about where Scott Hairston might play in the outfield. They just said that they got him. I mean, this is before they fell in love with Rajai Davis, so he had a shot at playing some center field. They said nothing about that. This thing went on for 2 minutes. I don't even know what the guy was talking about, but if you break down a trade, you should break down a trade. Don't read the trade to me and read his lifetime stats. I can find that elsewhere. If someone breaks down a recipe for chocolate chip cookies, you don't read to me what the ingredients are. You tell me, well, this approach actually incorporates some French influence, or this is the fastest way to make it, or this recipe here has more yeast and less sugar. And give me some value add if you're going to say you're going to break something down. I was extremely disappointed, and I probably have never gone back to MLB.com again. More recently, Major League Baseball playoffs. I saw an article on Yahoo.com that Roy Halladay's no-hitter makes Phillies fans forget Cliff Lee. It makes the trade of Cliff Lee and the acquisition of Roy Halladay, it justifies it. And I had to laugh at that as well. A no-hitter is a perfect thing for the media to grab onto. That is meaningless to you and I. Yeah, I know. It's the postseason. The postseason has no impact on strat cards. I get that. But to think the next time I read about this writer, I'll remember this fact. I'll remember the fact that he thinks that a no-hitter is worth one game, one no-hitter, completely justifies trading Cliff Lee. I know you replaced Cliff Lee with Halladay, and I know it was Halladay who had the no-hitter. But wouldn't a complete game 2-hit shutout be worth exactly the same as a no-hitter? You just want to win one game in the playoffs, and that's how they did. And to think that one game like that, yeah, it was a no-hitter. Oh my God, it's awesome. It's a no-hitter. Yeah, it is, but it's just one game, and one game alone cannot possibly justify trading a single player. So I'm not here to say whether it was getting rid of Cliff Lee and picking up Halladay was the right thing or the wrong thing. That's not the point. The point is this guy went out on a limb and wrote a whole piece on just how this one no-hitter completely justified trading one guy and picking up another. And that, to me, I think, is kind of false. The following day on Yahoo.com, there was an article about Game 1 of the Yankees and Rangers, and they said, Rangers bullpen failed, and that's a bad sign for the Rangers. Well, yeah, I think we all could figure that out. And I read through the article, and I talked about how the Rangers bullpen this or that. So the Rangers bullpen, which was pretty sweet throughout the year, actually, it did pretty well in the first round against the Rays. Now all of a sudden, they allowed 6 runs, in the last 3 or 4 innings to the Yankees. That's not good. But if they were good for 162 games, they'll probably recover, as they did tonight, actually. But shouldn't it be more disturbing that CC Sabathia only pitched 4 innings against the Rangers? And by the way, this isn't me zooming in and out. I apologize. I put it on a setting that I thought would be helpful, and it's not. Put my webcam on a setting that's not helpful. To me, the next time I go to Yahoo and I'm reading an article, I just have to know that half the time that I'm going to read this, it's just going to be your typical writer putting forth your standard fare from any article. A writer puts together a viewpoint and then dresses it up with facts to surround it. Yes, the fact that they blew a 5-run lead is not good for the Rangers or their bullpen, but a much bigger concern is if CC Sabathia can't be a workhorse. Isn't that a bigger concern for the Yankees than it would be for the Rangers? Sabathia will pitch again unless the Yankees sweep, he won't pitch again. But in that case, he'd be starting Game 1 of the World Series. He's probably going to pitch again. Well, now he will because the Rangers won today. So he's going to pitch again in the ALCS. If the Yankees win it, he'll pitch once, twice, maybe 3 times, right? In the World Series if they make it that far. I just feel like it was the wrong issue to highlight. And when a bullpen does well for 162 games and happens to fall through in one game, you really just shouldn't overreact, basically. So I've wanted to record this webcast for a while. As you've seen, that there's a lot of issues here that I've highlighted that took place over a year ago. But I just feel like as a Strat manager, you have to understand what information is out there that is worth looking at and what is not. And there's plenty that's not. I hope that all the stuff that you see at Stratogists.com is stuff that you do like, and we try to be pretty hard-hitting. I don't put a lot of content out there. The stuff I put out there is mostly free, except for the rookie review. But the reason that we don't put a lot of stuff out there is that I want it all to be good, I want it all to be real. And I appreciate you visiting our website, and I appreciate you listening to me. Again, this is Mike San Clemente with Strategist.com, and I hope for more webcasts for the rest of this year.